Welcome to another insightful episode of the Wealth Movement. I'm your host, Kristoffer Fu, and today we're joined by Dr. Donna Marino, an expert in coaching family businesses and entrepreneurs. In this episode, we delve deep into the world of leadership, the psychological aspects of maintaining a business, and the unique challenges faced by family owned enterprises. Dr. Donna shares her journey from a blue collar, middle class background to becoming a key influencer in the coaching industry, helping business owners navigate the complexities of succession planning, conflict resolution, and personal well being. We also discuss her innovative approach that combines psychology with direct coaching that fosters courageous conversations and promotes growth within family businesses. Dr. Donna brings a fresh perspective on building wealth that transcends monetary value, emphasizing the importance of fulfillment and strong relational ties. Join us as we explore these critical topics and uncover the principles of wise leadership that can transform personal and professional lives.
Courageous conflict is about being brave and having the vulnerable, honest conversations where you don't agree, but where you get to a result.
Dr. Donna Marino, thank you so much for being on the Wealth Movement today.
Thank you for having me here. I'm excited to speak with you and your audience.
Yes. Well, I had the pleasure of speaking with you on your podcast, The Courageous Conflict, and speaking with your audience. And, of course, we share in the passion of helping similar clients, family-owned business owners. Obviously, with your background and being a clinical psychologist and also a coach to family-owned businesses and entrepreneurs and business owners, I think this collaboration, being able to kind of hear your journey and what you do, along with me being able to share that on your podcast is super special. So I'm excited to have you on the show and share your insights and your wisdom with the community of the Wealth Movement.
Thank you so much. Yes, I really enjoyed our conversation as well on my podcast. And as you said, we work with the same people, but it's completely different angles. And both of them are really needed to help these families and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I definitely want to dive into that and see again through your lens and how you do that. And of course, before I go into that, I always like to start with an icebreaker just to warm things up. And, for you with your background in helping originally families and children, I believe, right? Was where you
Right.
started your clinical psychologist background. I wanted to ask you, Dr. Marino, is if you could go back and speak with the Dr. Donna at 8 years old, what would you guys talk about? And what is one question, you think she would ask you?
Oh wow. I had to think about being 8, right? Um, when I was 8 years old, I really wanted to be a ballerina.
Ah,
So, ended up in quite a different place, and, I think I would share with her, it's gonna look really different than how you think, but it's gonna be great, and you're
yeah,
gonna love it.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah, I love just kind of doing those little exercises. I try to find myself doing that consciously, going back and speaking to that little 8-year-old Chris as well too. And it's kind of I like it because it's reaffirming as far as your journey and what you're doing. Because
Right. It's like looking back and thinking like, "Wow, I wanted something so different, and yet I'm so fulfilled."
yeah, yeah, and that's the
Yeah.
I think that's the name of the game, right? Of life, living a fulfilled life.
Yes. Yes, for
Now
sure.
your expertise and I think why we get along so well and complement one another, is we like to ask the tough questions to our clients.
Mhm.
And I personally feel that that's what creates movement. That's the whole genesis of the wealth movement is to help people kind of move in some direction towards, that life of fulfillment. So I wanted to ask you, conflict, it's a different word for different people. What does the word conflict mean to you? It's obviously a big part of your podcast name, Courageous Conflict. What does it mean to you and why is it so important?
Right. I think that that courageous conflict is about having brave conversations, right? So we can tend to have this negative connotation to conflict. And certainly it can be when it's out of control. But courageous conflict is about being brave and having the vulnerable, honest conversations where you don't agree, but where you get to a result that's even better than
Mhm.
if you had walked in patting each other on the back with having a great idea. I really think that it's through those different perspectives and through that rubbing up against each other a little bit, seeing
Mhm.
it differently, but having a mutually respectful conversation that gets you to ultimately the outcome you both desire.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I see that, again, your background is very unique in that you're, you know, psychologist, but of course also a coach, right?
Mhm.
And I love on your website it says psychologist or coach, why not both?
Right,
You
right.
know? And I think that's very unique as far as your ability, I guess. Has that helped you be able to kind of pull those difficult have those difficult conversations with those clients that you serve?
Yeah, absolutely. I think coming at it from a psychologist is a different lens that my clients really appreciate and feel that just extra layer of knowledge and credibility. And, it's not therapy, right? It is
Mhm.
coaching, but psychology is the study of the brain and behavior.
Mhm.
So when it comes to conflict, I'm able to challenge people's thinking, right? Like, hear the assumptions, hear where they're jumping to conclusions, asking what if it wasn't that way? Or
Mm.
pointing out, like, um, do you know for sure that that's true, what you're thinking?
Mm.
What's that based on? And just really getting people to examine what they're thinking about the other person, why the conflict's occurring. Um, is there a way, like I said, to talk through it to get to a better result rather than, people shut down, people become aggressive, people become passive aggressive when they're afraid of facing the conflict right on. So it's an ability to really read people, read a room, and challenge thinking in a way that people can accept the challenge.
Mm. Okay. Yeah, I
Yeah.
I would imagine that comes in really handy, especially with working with business owners,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Business owners, we're very stubborn in the things that we do. Obviously, as you know,
Oh,
right?
yes. Well, and it helps that I'm a business owner too,
Yeah,
right? So I'm a psychologist, I'm a coach, I'm a business owner. And
yeah.
that's one of the great things is having this blend. I was recently talking to someone who has a similar background to me. And he said, the thing that makes it sort of different than family therapy or a step above that family therapy, if you will. No, I've referred people to family therapy instead because there's so much going on. But having that having that layer too of understanding business,
Yeah.
right? Because that's not sort of the traditional path. And being able to understand how family dynamics play out, how organizational systems work, and how business functions, and understand that entrepreneurial mentality, like you're saying, like being stubborn, being ambitious. And with family businesses, being a little hesitant about letting, an outsider in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, as you're bringing that up, right? One of the things with family-owned businesses, I think I talked about it on your podcast, right? If let's just say again, it's a close-knit tribe in essence,
Mhm.
right? And but sometimes you do need to let those outside, third party individuals come in to elevate you and your business and your family to the next level is if that's your goal and or to help take over if say the Gen 2 doesn't want to. How do you how do you navigate that? I mean, obviously it's not an overnight thing.
Right, right. It's all about building trust. And so, first, really listening and really being respectful of what they built and where they are and what they want.
Mhm.
Um, but also being able to explain the advantage of having that outside perspective. So, I don't remember where this quote came from, but it's you can't read the label from inside the bottle.
Mm.
Right, when you're in the mix, it's really hard to step back and see what you're missing. I think that is also an advantage of bringing in non-family members to be employees or to be in that C-suite, and people who have had different business experiences first so that they can share that outside knowledge. But you really have to, like, prove yourself first and
Yeah.
create that psychological safety and trust. So that's all through relationship building first.
Yeah. Now in the continuing with that, in the eyes of the business owner, right? Again, oftentimes just so busy 24/7 working in the business. Are there things or signs that maybe that business owner should be conscious of or aware of or paying attention to say, okay, maybe I do need to consider bringing someone from the outside in as opposed to waiting till the very end when it's kind of not too late, but it could have helped a lot more sooner.
Absolutely. I was just thinking about this the other day. I heard someone say it again, and I hear people say all the time, I wish I knew you a year ago. Right? And
Yeah.
I just recently had a client who I actually said that to. You should have brought me in a year ago. This is
Yeah.
frankly, this is a mess. And so I think that the issues that arise are um conflict during succession. I find there's a real lack of communication often around that. People are making assumptions about who's going to take it or who's going to leave and when. Uh, Scaling, there's a lot of growing pains that happen when suddenly your small family business has grown and grown and you have all these new people in. And
Mhm.
how do you maintain that culture?
Mhm.
Uh, so there's a lot around transitions and family relationships, and how do non-family members function within the system, and what do they need and what kind of support? So there's really a lot of different angles that you can come into
Mhm.
uh, that a lot of people won't see.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. And then so how do you think I don't know, is there a way to see or is that just more of an internal thing? Like, for example, I was working out today and I listened to these motivational, you know, podcasts and clips, right? And it was talking about, reaching a new level. You basically are making a new version of yourself, right? Like Chris 4.0. But you consciously have to do that. I'm wondering, is that kind of what maybe a business owner will need to kind of take a step back on and try to do? I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, I think that a big piece of what I do is teach them teach them how to do these things so that when I'm gone, right? I'm
Yeah.
a coach or a consultant. I'm not meant to be there forever.
Mm,
And for example, a leader that I've worked with, and we have worked with each other for a couple years now, but when I watch the growth of his leadership from being a brand new owner, third generation, the emotional intelligence that has changed and how he relates to his employees, how he runs a meeting, deals with when someone isn't performing how he wants. You know, yes, I definitely think that it's about sort of teaching them your skill set so that they can take it over.
yeah. And you mentioned something, right? As far as being a coach, your goal is not to be there forever. I'm assuming it's more so to be there in the critical point in their journey to help them, move to the next level. And maybe they'll bring you back on once they need to keep going. What
Mhm.
what does that typical journey look like? Is it obviously everyone's different, but is it normally like a 12-month, 24-month, 36-month type of journey?
Yeah, I would say that often it's a 12-month journey, right? You work together. I work with the whole system. So that's kind of what's different. So I will come in and maybe I start with one person, but then I move into working with, say, the whole leadership team and getting them to work together. So I'll work with them individually on their own leadership skills, but then I'll bring them all together to make sure the team is functioning well together. And I'll do training, I'll do assessments, I'll do the coaching. And that's where I think that what I call wraparound approach, which is a way psychologists and social workers work, you're impacting the whole system so that it does function as that well oiled machine rather
Mm,
than just kind of working in isolation.
yes.
The other thing is you get everybody's perspective instead of just hearing one person and you're just like, "Oh, yeah," and you're agreeing with them. Now
Right.
you get the full picture and you're like, "Oh, okay, I get it. I see what's going on here."
Yeah, I'm sure
Right.
I'm sure when that happens for not just the owner, but everyone involved, I can't imagine what, of a breakthrough or eye-opening experience that must be.
Mhm. Yeah, when I hear someone say, I've never been this close with my father." And I
Mm,
picked up the phone the other day just to share with him something completely unrelated to work, right? And just something he was excited about. He's like, "I wouldn't have done that a year ago." Right? And those are the moments, right? Those are the
yes.
things that I'm like, "Yes."
Yeah.
Uh family is so important to me, so, it's kind of how I got here, and if I can keep that family together and in harmony, and they get to grow their business and leave this legacy, it's the best feeling.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. I love that story. Now, speaking of family, Dr. Donna, I'm curious, I obviously, I love money behavior, money psychology, and I feel that when it comes to money and wealth, right, a lot of is learned, when we're growing up. I'm curious, what was that experience like for you, if you don't mind sharing, growing up? Like what was money like growing up for you? Was that something that was talked about in your family?
It's a great question, Chris. It's something I've been examining a lot lately in order to shift my own money beliefs. And,
Yeah.
you know, um, I grew up in a middle class neighborhood, blue collar. My dad was an electrician working on some of the biggest buildings in Manhattan. A lot of pride there, a lot of loyalty in the family. My mom was a stay at home mom, and there were 4 kids. And we were very much taught not to talk about money. You never ask someone how much money they make. That was never shared.
Hmm.
Uh, But when we did talk about money, it was kind of from a lack place. It was, money doesn't grow on trees and we're on austerity. And there was this like focus really on like, hey, we have a big family and we got to make this go, right? We got to make sure this lasts.
Right.
And it's funny because at the same time, there were those messages, but we always went on vacation for 2 weeks in July. We never went without. We might have hand-me-down clothes, but, so I feel like we lived okay, right? But there was this real scarcity mindset that was instilled.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, I think that's an important thing for people to be aware of, right? That subconsciously, or not subconsciously, but yeah, we grow up with a lot of our money beliefs when we're young, and that just translates to adulthood. But it's also a transformation, like you said, that we're going through. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so then I'm curious, you again started your background was working with family and children. What was the shift that made you say, you know what, I love what I do, but I want more impact? Was there anything particular that made you shift to go into coaching family businesses and executives?
Yeah. I had been in the therapy arena a long time. I had my own therapy practice for almost a decade, and we moved about an hour away, and I didn't know anyone there, and I know how hard it is to start a business. So I worked
Yeah.
for someone else for a few years, and actually my sister died very unexpectedly,
Oh, wow.
uh, 2 weeks after her 40th birthday.
Wow.
And it's one of those moments, right, where you take stock, where you go, "What am I doing? Why am I doing it? Am I happy? Am I fulfilled?" And I realized that I had, like, really gotten off my path, that there were more things I wanted to do, including outside of coaching, like writing a book, doing a TED Talk, and I've done these things now. But I was so burnt out in the role I was in, and it was taking away from my family.
Mhm.
I was working while my kids were in swim lessons instead of watching them. And Sundays, I would start to get that Sunday dread, right, of going back, and you're like in your head all the things you have to do. And it was a real wake up call. I was like, no, my family is too important to make this sacrifice. And um, I knew I didn't want to go, back into therapy.
Mhm.
Um, I kind of didn't want that heaviness anymore. And I had trained in positive psychology, which is really all about thriving.
Yeah.
If you're familiar with like Brendan Bouchard and high performance habits, that's all positive psychology, atomic habits, anything from
Yeah.
Adam Grant, that's the field. And I felt like 2 things, family, being a top value of mine, and then impact. And how do you impact the most people? You do that by working with leaders. And family businesses, as you know, really being the backbone of communities and economy. I just felt like this honors my values, and makes that impact that I desire. So,
Mhm. Well, thank
yeah.
you so much, for sharing that story. I know that was very, very personal. I appreciate that, and I think I love having these conversations because again, it's how you found your next purpose. It sounds like right in what you
Yeah.
wanted to do, and the folks that you wanted to help that would make the biggest impact. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
you mentioned one of the things, that you were going through during your journey was being burnt out.
Mhm. Mm.
And I
Yeah.
believe that is, like, one of your training modules or exercises that you
Mhm.
do with, leadership and folks. That's that's a big thing, that a lot of people are facing. What what does that look like? That I'm just curious, what does that training look like to help people kind of scale back so they don't get to a point of just pure exhaustion, pure burning out, and just stop doing everything.
Yeah. Yeah, and so many people, especially high achievers, wait too long, right? They wait till, like, they don't wanna get out of bed. I
Mhm.
mean, what made me realize how burnt out I was, I went to work no matter what, right? Migraine, sick,
Wow.
whatever,
Wow,
right?
yeah.
Um, and I called in sick one day just because I couldn't do it, and I was like, "Oh, wow. This is not me. This is crazy."
Yeah.
Um, and so what I teach is really about taking care of your body, taking care of your nervous system, which is something we don't talk about a lot, right? So we damage our nervous system by not getting enough sleep, by the adrenaline rush that we get addicted to as high achievers of like putting out fires, sort of
Yeah.
being time crunched
Right.
and oh, there's another crisis for me to solve and all of that. It's like as stressful as that is, there's a part of us that gets a high from that. And what I teach people also from positive psychology is that you think you're getting all this done, burning the candle at both ends, but you just become slower and less efficient and make
Mhm.
more mistakes by not taking breaks, by not taking care of yourself. Uh, Sleep is, I mean, we are a country of sleep deprived people, and sleep is the foundation of both physical and mental health. And that is really the best place to start. But it's these foundational things, sleep, having a healthy diet, getting exercise, getting outside, that is really the place to start. But I'll often say, you need to guard your time,
Uh,
your energy, and your mind,
yeah.
right? Especially for entrepreneurs, because that's what makes us money, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, have you read this book yet, Behave?
Mm-mm.
It's, a lot of what you were talking about, reminds me of I'm not even close to being done. It's, like, almost 800 pages.
Wow.
But it's basically, the biology of humans at our best and our worst.
Mm,
And right now, I'm just in the thick of it as far as just, the biological workings of the brain and neurons and how that all,
yeah,
ties together. But it reminds me just kind of what you're really talking about, right? Just these things of sleep that are so important that we tend to deny ourselves of because we think we don't have enough time to accomplish all the things that we want to do as entrepreneurs, and we have big life goals, right? But in fact,
yeah,
we're doing the exact opposite of actually hurting that ability to do that because we're not focusing on the thing that can give us actually more time to be efficient.
yeah. I mean, during sleep, our body repairs, our organs, our immunity, and then our brain helps process the day and
Mhm.
consolidate memory. And, people who complain about uh, brain fog and, memory and not being able to hold things in their head, uh, sleep is often at the core of that. And then the other thing I'll say is multitasking. We are a country of multitasking, and instead of doing one thing well, we do a lot of things not so well.
Is there a kind of like a limit that you know of, with your background as far as what we could do multitasking
Mm.
well-ish before we get into the realm of not so well?
Yeah, that is a good question. I would say that I don't know what that number is, but I do know that the brain is really only meant to focus on one thing at a time.
Okay, good to
And
know.
in fact, having your email open, just having it open all day while you're doing other work, slows you down, distracts you. If you jump back and forth, it takes about 20 minutes for you to get back in the groove. So the
Oh,
time
wow.
lost is whatever time it took you to respond to the email, read the email, plus 20 minutes. And so you
Wow.
really need to think about that. Do I want to give away that much time right now?
That's a lot of time.
It
And
is.
that's as you keep going back and forth, you're adding another 20 minutes, it sounds like.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
breaking you out of that flow state.
Mhm. Mhm.
Wow, okay.
Exactly.
Now I know what I need to do with my inbox.
Right. Right. I recommend to people to have scheduled times that they check their email.
Yeah.
And I know I get a lot of resistance on this, right?
I'm sure you
Pe
do.
right? People can't wait. You know, check it in the morning, check it midday, check it before you go. Most people can wait a few hours. If they can't, trust me, they'll find you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the other
Yeah.
thing with that is that we teach people what to expect from us. So
Mm,
if you are responding like every second, now someone expects that. If you set healthy expectations, healthy boundaries, they'll know. They'll know what to expect.
right. Yeah. Yeah. Now that makes
Yeah.
so much sense. Yeah, and it's all within your control, and it's kind of giving that control away, in a lot of ways.
Mhm.
Subconsciously,
Mhm.
really, you
Oh
know?
yeah. You really have to think about it in that way. Like, what am I giving away? Um, I hate to say it this way, but it's true. Is this person deserving of it? Is this situation deserving of it? Is, changing that into that reframe and bringing it to consciousness so that
Oh,
you're consciously choosing.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's something that you just, have to continuously do, not a one-time thing, right? I think they say to do a healthy habit, it takes 60-ish days or something like that? I don't know.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things out there. I don't believe any of them are actually founded in scientific evidence,
Uh-huh.
but I think it depends on the habit and the consistency of working on it and the salience of it. How important is it to you?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
Everyone's different at the end of the day.
Right.
Well,
Right. Absolutely.
yeah. Now
Yeah.
I'm curious when we're talking about, making these shifts and trying to get into the right flow state and not getting distracted, all those different things. In the world of family businesses and helping business owners exit or even think about, right, that next step in life. I'm curious, from your thoughts, why should someone, say a business owner, even think about it if their business is going smoothly? If everything's
Mhm.
going well and the family is happy and everyone's getting along and economy is great, business is great, why should they even think about it?
great question. I have seen where everything's going great and then something happens. The owner gets sick and has to come out of the business unexpectedly, and people don't know how to handle that. Lots of different things can happen. And if you don't have a plan, and if you don't do it while things are good and you're not stressed out and you can think clearly, it's so much harder. So it's like having a will, right? When that happens, you're actually taking care of your family by doing that. Instead of them having to guess and figure it out and feel stressed out and not know your wishes, it's the same thing. And that lack of preparation and planning puts your loved ones in a situation that they don't need to be in and puts the business at risk.
Hmm.
Uh, a family business is like another member of the family. And
Hmm.
so that's part of taking care of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think all business owners, right? Your business is your baby, like you said. And
Mhm.
it is literally a family member, though not technically physically alive, it's still alive. It's a living thing.
Yeah.
And like you said, you need to take care of it even during times when it feels like it's doing very well. It's just making that conscious awareness. Thank you for sharing
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Now, I'm also curious. What are some of the top concerns that you see? In your line of work, working with a lot of business owners. What are some of the concerns that you see that maybe aren't being addressed? That a lot of these owners who are planning to maybe exit in the next decade, right? Statistics show there's going to be a not just a massive wealth transfer from boomers to millennials and Gen Z, but even in the business world, there's expected to be a massive transfer. What are some of the concerns that you have that you think these owners are not aware of that they should start paying attention to?
The biggest thing is that there are so many conversations not happening. I will be talking with an owner who's is thinking about succession and I'll say, "Have you told your kids this?" And they're like, "No, do you think I should?" Have those conversations, early, often. I just met with another owner and he's not thinking of exiting right now. Maybe it's 5 years, but the other family members in the company, he's, he's president or CEO and the other family members are like part-time, things like that. Well, they haven't talked about what that looks like, what they agree to. You can end up with a lot of family fighting if you don't have those conversations early.
Yeah.
Uh, the other thing I will say, and I'm actually speaking on this next month as a panel, we're talking about succession.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that May 9th in Illinois if you're interested. Um, you know, uh They people don't think about the shift in identity that they're going to have to deal with.
Mm,
And as we said, this is their baby. They've put their blood, sweat, and tears into it. Owning that business becomes so much of who they are. And, I had a client that was just having anxiety and didn't know why. And that was exactly it. Who am I going to be? And no matter what, family business, regular business, uh, work as a community is so much of how we identify, right? Like after you learn someone's name, usually the next question is, what do you do?
yeah.
And there's this idea, right, that retirement, you should be excited, it should be fun. And often it is. But if you don't have a plan, oftentimes people will have the honeymoon period and they'll golf and travel and do things. And then suddenly that is done and they don't know what to do with themselves. And they become at risk for depression, anxiety. So you really need to plan ahead about what that's going to look like.
Yeah, I think, you're talking about this identity shift. And a couple weeks ago, I was having thoughts pop into my mind, for my next uh, newsletter, and I forgot how it came about, but we hear about identity theft, right? Identity
Mm,
theft crime happening to us, but I'm also was thinking about, well, what about our identity theft that is going on subconsciously if we're not being aware of it? That is
yeah,
going on. Like you said, retirement is this big thing that a lot of people place in their mind. But I look at it as really just the next transition in your life, not this big, huge, magical thing. But it's also, you got to be prepared for it because it is going to be an identity change and a shift. Because, like you said, not even just business owners, but everyday, employees, that's a big part of their what they do and what they associate themselves with as part of their identity.
yeah. And I'm sure you see that, Chris, and you see people who don't kind of plan for what's next and,
Yes.
how do they want to use their money in
Right.
retirement and what is that dream? Have they planned for it? Do they even realize it's possible for them?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely a lot more deeper conversations that I've been having the last couple years with a lot of people just, about that because as an advisor, we have a lot of technical knowledge, with financial planning and investment
Mhm.
portfolio management. But I think the biggest thing where I find a lot of joy is, again, helping clients kind of discover that, for themselves, like what does wealth mean to you?
Mm,
I believe there's a huge difference between money and wealth. They're two different things. And I'm curious, Dr. Donna, what does wealth mean to you? As you're helping, building your own empire and everything, right? I'm sure that's in the background for you. What does that mean to you?
yeah, I love that question, Chris, and how yeah, that it's not wealth and money are not the same thing. Um, one of the things that I would like to be able to do is create a foundation for kids to get an education, a higher education that maybe wouldn't be able to do that, to tap into that potential that may be unseen. Uh,
Mm,
but wealth to me is, having time with my family for those experiences. It is being in charge of my time, right? Time is the greatest resource right now.
yeah,
And it's fulfillment. If you feel fulfilled, I don't know that there's much more wealth beyond that, right?
absolutely. Absolutely. I
Yeah.
love those
Yeah.
answers. I mean, because if you really break that down, it's really not monetary what you just broke down.
Right.
Those are
Right.
the not invalid, but the intangible things that we take for granted, and I think society replaces it with the tangible, the money things as the definition of wealth for most. And I think that's kind of
Mhm.
where the mission or their purpose kind of gets lost in a lot of times. Is trying to make that
Yeah.
distinction.
Right. That's really about experiences. I know right now I've been thinking a lot about my business growth, and I have 2, teenage girls. I've got a 17-year-old who's a junior in high school, and I have a 19-year-old who's a freshman in college, and what's really present for me is they're only gonna be home so much longer, right?
Mhm.
And so I love my business, I love the work that I do, um but I am prioritizing making sure I soak it all up while they're here.
Yeah.
So, I have my clients, I take great care of them. It's not that I'm not taking on new clients, but uh I'm not looking to scale my business right now because they're the priority. And, in a few years or so, maybe that's the shift. But the wealth for me is is knowing that I was there for them and knowing that I had that time with them.
Ah, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you for sharing that. Now, I
Thank
just obviously we can go on forever, Dr. Donna,
I know we can.
but we'll probably have to do like a part two, part three. But
Right,
you
I
know,
agree.
but I want to obviously be conscious of your time, so I just wanted to ask a couple more questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
You have your book, right? The Five Principles of Wise Leadership. I think.
Mm.
Did it?
Unleash the wise leader in
Unleash the
you.
Wise. I'm
But
sorry. Uh,
yes, that's the essence of the book, right?
can you mind sharing what one of those five principles are, and how it helps women? I think that's your main demographic, right, for this book, but
Mhm.
I'm sure
Yes,
anyone
for
can
this
use it,
book.
really.
Absolutely. The very first principle is claiming your leadership. And this one, I was doing a presentation on wise leadership, and the audience was women in finance. And I asked about leadership, who here is a leader? And only a few hands went up.
Mm,
And then as I started asking questions like, who here is part of the PTA? Who here serves on a board in their religious community? Who here, is a business owner? And kind of went through the list and the hands started going up. And then I said, look around. You're all leaders.
yeah.
Um, if you are influencing someone, you're a leader. And if you want other people to see you as a leader, if you want to make the impact that you want to make on the world, the first thing is really claiming your leadership, making that a part of your identity, and owning it. And I think not enough women do that.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That gave me goosebumps, to be honest with you, as you were talking about it, because there's so many things that women do, that what society says leaders is, you got to be what, a CEO to be a leader, and that's the only leader out there. But just like you said, there's so many other things that, if you're making an impact on someone besides
Mhm.
yourself, you're a leader.
Yeah. And
You
that
know?
includes stay at home moms,
Yeah.
right? They are running the show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
When they get sick, everybody knows, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
So,
Oh, especially the
yeah.
stay-at-home moms.
Oh,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah.
They
Yeah.
are running a big ship for sure.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yeah. Now I'm curious, what is one thing, Dr. Donna, you think could make the world an even better place?
I truly believe that more people need to live in their purpose, and that to find your purpose, just look at what you're good at and what you're passionate about. I actually have the belief that it is a duty of ours and that we are given these gifts and talents and passions because we're meant to share them. And I believe that when people do that, they're happier and the world becomes a better place,
Mm,
right? We have less violence, we have less conflict, less, look at the world and look at the things that are happening. I really believe that that is a way of healing the world, and it benefits us as well, right? We'll be more joyful.
yes, 100% agree. 100% agree. Now, is there any one piece of financial advice that you could share with the listeners, that, is maybe something that you help your business owners on, or just subscribe to, yourself?
Absolutely. I think you need to examine your mindset and consciously work to have an abundance mindset. A lot of us grew up in scarcity. I've had to do a lot of work around that, but challenge your money beliefs. And you have to bring them to the surface to do that. There's a lot of beliefs underneath the surface that sabotage your results. And start having that abundance mindset and change what you think you're capable of.
Yes, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
And then last, Dr. Donna, do you have a favorite quote that you would mind sharing?
Oh, that is a good question.
I love quotes. I love collecting quotes from people and
Yeah, you know what? There is a quote of mine, not of mine, but it's of John Quincy Adams, and it's on leadership. And I can't remember it
us.
exactly, but it is about that influencing, right? If you,
Yeah.
there's three things he says, so you'll all have to look it up. But essentially, he says if you are influencing and impacting and changing someone's life, you are a leader. And, yeah, and I do love that one.
Yeah.
I'm
I
sure
mean, it
it's in the book.
translates. Well, it translates into your first principle of claiming
Right,
being a leader.
right.
Yeah. Oh,
Exactly,
awesome. Well, Dr.
exactly.
Donna, how could people find you, listeners, business owners that are listening to this and thinking, maybe I do need to just kind of step back a little bit and re-examine some things. What's the best way that people can connect with you or even just ask you simple questions?
Sure, you can reach me at Donna at drdonnamarino.com, DR for doctor. That's my also, my website and, my LinkedIn. That's pretty much my handle for everything, Dr. Donna Marino. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
And then your podcast, Courageous Conflict, is on Spotify, Apple,
Yes.
right? Yeah.
Yes, and you can also find a link to it on my website under press and media, so
Oh, exciting. And then you will be,
yeah.
like you said, next month speaking at on a panel at a conference in Chicago?
Yes, yes, it's for, Renaissance Executive Forum. They're holding a conference at Elgin Community College on May 9th, and, there's gonna be a lot of great speakers, and I'm excited to be a part of the panel that is about, hold your business or sell your business.
Oh,
So,
awesome. Awesome.
yeah.
Is it gonna be streamed online at all for people who are not, like, in the area? Do you know?
I don't believe so,
Okay.
but you can register online if you're in the area, and, there should be a link in my LinkedIn feed for that.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely, of course, include all of that in the show notes and everything, but again, Dr. Donna, thank you so much for being a guest on the Wealth Movement. Again, we're gonna have to do part 2, part 3 of these things.
I agree, and thank you for having me. It's really always a pleasure to talk with you, Chris, and, appreciate being on the show.
Oh, likewise. Pleasure is mine. Thank you so much, Dr. Donna. Securities offered through Kestra Investment Services, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Kestra Private Wealth Services, LLC. An affiliate of Kestra is. Both Wealth Management and Kestra Investment Services are not affiliated. Kestra is and Kestra is do not provide tax or legal advice. The opinions expressed in this commentary are those of the author and may not necessarily reflect those held by Kestra Investment Services, LLC or Kestra Advisory Services, LLC. This is for general information only and is not intended to provide specific investment advice or recommendations for any individual. It is suggested that you consult your financial professional, attorney, or tax advisor with regard to your individual situation. Comments concerning the past performance are not intended to be forward-looking and should not be viewed as an indication of future results.